What's up, guys?
Living the dream.
Oh, there it is. It's my favorite. My favorite.
Enjoying sunshine, warm weather.
Warm weather, man. Spring's hitting early this year.
I like it.
He's got his baseball tee on over there.
Yeah,
Look,
man. Look, ready to go. Going to practice right after this?
season.
1984 called, yeah.
Yeah, I love these little three-quarter.
Ryan Sandberg.
Yeah, I'm a three-quarter
Love
fan.
them,
You do look like maybe 10 years younger when you dress like that.
Perfect.
So, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I already have that baby face going on. So,
You just put your hat on backwards.
About 23 now.
I don't know.
25?
I don't know. Oh, that's cool. You guys doing all right?
Yeah.
All right.
Can't complain.
Good to see you again. Episode number 32.
32.
Yeah,
Moving
32.
along.
Big one. So on this one, we're going to get a little deeper, and we have some audio. And so, I mean, this is really Lukas brought this idea to the table, and it's the old Paul Harvey. If I Were the Devil. So this has been out with 1960s.
1965.
1965. He put this out, and we're actually gonna play the audio, which I hope there's no like laws against this, but we're doing it anyway.
Your phone, your internet.
Yeah, I'll be the one that goes down.
That's Harvick. H-A. No.
Yeah, you can reach me at. No, I'm just kidding.
Now, Anthony, have you ever heard this before?
No, never heard it.
You didn't even listen to it.
So he's
I'm about to.
He's going in cold, people.
Okay,
So, black and white, 1965.
Let me see.
Paul Harvey.
Is this the year Pastor Mike Benson was born?
1965,
Yeah.
possibly.
Yeah, I think so.
possibly. He's old. Man, he must be dyeing his hair.
Yeah, I think he is.
All right, are you ready? This is new for us, so I'm trying this out. Let's see if this works. Here we go. This is Paul Harvey. Is his I would call it like an essay or a little commentary called "If I Were the Devil," and here we go.
If I were the devil. If I were the devil. If I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness, and I'd have a third of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree. Thee. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of a serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. And the old I would teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington. And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves, until each in its turn was consumed. And with promises of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flames. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions. Just let those run wild. Until before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon I could evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, and then from the houses of Congress. And in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion and deify science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls and church money. If I were the devil, I'd make the symbol of Easter an egg and the symbol of Christmas a bottle. If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who wanted until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. And what'll you bet? I couldn't get whole states to promote gambling as the way to get rich. I would caution against extremes in hard work, in patriotism, in moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun, that what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases for which there is no cure. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep right on doing what he's doing.
Well, there it is.
That's it. That's the episode.
1965, you say?
Yeah, 60. Well, what's it? 59 years.
I
60
can't,
years.
I can't do the math.
Anthony, you're the
Yeah.
pilot. You do the math.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Close enough.
Yeah. So I mean, well, all right, Lucas.
60. Well, I don't.
Yeah.
This is everybody heard this.
Oh,
So
okay,
everybody can
okay.
talk. But
I mean, it's definitely there's some somberness after you listen to that.
Yeah.
yeah. So 60 years ago, he was obviously seeing a lot of that in our country, right? But to me, it's way worse now than. I mean, I wasn't alive in 1965, but
Me neither.
for him to see that and just hear the quality, like it's black and white and the fuzziness and stuff is kind
I
of
love
funny.
that. Yeah, I love that.
But, anyways, like I kind of broke it down by paragraph. So the first paragraph, like he's saying the devil's goal is to take over the Apple or whatever, that's in America. And I would say the devil is doing a pretty good job in 2024 of taking over our churches. And I know we've talked a lot about the progressive Christianity and then the LGBTQ plus affirming that we're doing in the churches and stuff. And that's kind of what I got from that. Like he's went after the churches and destroying the churches. So what are you guys' thoughts on that part?
Yeah, I mean it's I mean we've talked about this a lot. Just there are churches out there, and I mean, one of my biggest fears for my kids is that they're going to fall into a church that doesn't stand on the truth of God. They're going to fall into a church that caters to the culture, and our culture is degrading, right? And so I
Quickly too.
yeah, very quickly. And I think he was talking like in the near term because he made a comment about decades and you know, and it's 1965. But I wonder if he could even imagine that there would be, like he talked about the hearts, and we'll get into this in the next paragraph. But yeah, no, I agree with you. It has happened and is happening. I mean, even from a world perspective, but especially here in this country where we hold freedom dear, and that was one of them.
And probably in the 60s when he was writing this, it was, you know, we were probably the last, I don't want to say the last, but we were the most godly country, I would say, at that time.
Yeah, I would say like
in the 60s, yeah.
Yeah, I would probably guess. I mean, there's some revival conversations to be had about that too during that time.
Right.
But yeah.
Second paragraph, it just starts out talking about the young. So he's like going after our children. And the thing that stuck out with me is the Bible is a myth. And I see that and hear that a lot of people, you know, they just take the Bible and twist it into what they want it to say. And
Or you hear the term too, Jewish folklore, right? Stories, just made up stories from the Jews and stuff like that. You hear that a lot even. You know, like how these stories just don't, like, they just don't make sense to me. You know, you hear stories like that.
And I think that's part of your growth as a person, that we go through the stages of faith and trying to we try to figure out if, you know, what my parents believe is the direction I went, and is that because of them or because I truly had I truly believe in this, right?
Yep.
But that comes right back to the personal relationship with Jesus Christ.
Yep.
You know, and I believe he died on the cross for my sins to bridge the gap between me and God, because I'm not perfect and God can only handle perfect.
Yep.
And when he did that, I now have the ability to have community with God. And I do truly believe that happened for me. And so then you start going backwards from there, right? If that's true, then this is true. If that's true, then this is true. And the prophecy. And no, I'm with you, Anthony. And I think it's been lost on grounding that with our kids, and just like the church, man, that's a big part of that. But it has to happen in the home too. So.
Yeah, and I think another thing I got from it, we're teaching more tolerance and not like sanctification with our kids.
Yep.
So when we have those opportunities to preach Jesus, we're just staying quiet and we're not doing it, right?
Yeah.
We're just like, oh, let's be quiet because we don't want to get attacked for our beliefs and things like that. And I think that's an issue too.
Well, we have something going on in our hometown right now, where I had a question for my kids. Well, like, what are you going to stand on if this really happens? Let's say the whole school walks out to support something that you don't believe in. What are you going to do? And man, it was a good conversation, because I understand. I hate that I have to even have the conversation with my 16-year-old, and he's very laid back and he's a pleaser, and I hate the idea that he has to maybe even think in those terms of, man, people might hate me if I say that I'm not walking out for this, right, kind of thing. But it's worth it, right? And to your point is, I have the question of at the end of this, like, what do we do? But anyway, keep going. Yeah. This is good.
The part where it talks about our Father out in Washington,
Yeah.
I think we have so many people that just put all their faith in government, and that's not good. That's just leading us down a path of destruction very quickly because people in Washington, they're mostly corrupt.
Both parties.
Yeah, both sides.
Yeah, all of them.
It's all
Some of the most corrupt people on the planet.
I'm gonna butcher this, but I have this new conviction that I need to be more aware of. I say things like I'm not political and all that, but I do need to be more aware. And somebody was telling me just this week, don't be deceived. There's two political parties. I can't even remember how they phrase it, but it's politicians and not. So it doesn't matter. It's not a two-party. Even to a point where you might even say it's not a democracy anymore. We only have two choices, and they're both pretty crooked. So
Yes, very.
I think there's a few good ones, but overall they get outshadowed. It's just not good.
Yep.
So in the third paragraph, it's talking about lewd literature. Some of the words he uses, I've never. But we see that everywhere, right? And I was telling you a couple weeks ago, just watching a football game with my boys, we can't even watch the commercials anymore without having
for sure
panties and bras and
all
sexuality.
kinds of issues.
Dude,
all
man,
of it.
I don't know how many times it's cover your eyes. Well, it's like horror movie previews. It's things you don't want them to consume.
Yeah, they're like, what did they say? I'm like, nah, don't worry about it.
You mute and then cover your eyes. Stop looking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's sad.
It sucks.
It's very sad.
So it just easily you can't get away from it.
It's part of our life too. So we kind of it's like you talk about it. It creeps in, and then it's just part of it, and you kind of almost live with it, right?
Then he's like, I'll tranquilize the rest with pills. Well, we know I don't want to say half of our population, but we just give pills. For a lot of our mental, people that are struggling with mental things, we just give them pills. So we're not even trying to not talking about everybody.
The underlying condition, right?
We just give them pills. Here, take this, take this. Well,
This
then
will
they
make you
don't have
relax, right?
Yeah. Or if you're having these feelings like, oh, I'm, LGBTQ movement. Oh, we can fix you with a pill or thing that's not how we fix society, right?
Yeah, that's right.
The next one is just talking about families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, nations at war with themselves. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's all divisive. So I would say maybe I don't experience with family as much, so it doesn't ring true. I mean, yeah, of course, family can be whatever, and we all disagree about little things.
Oh, I think it's maybe even going toward, when parents get divorced. Right now, there's this big battle.
fair.
There's a guy I know on that I've known. He's struggling with it. Single dad, but his ex-wife won't even allow him to see his own kids.
Yeah.
And putting the courts against him. And how terrible is that? Where the kids that don't even have access to their father.
Yeah, that's not good.
I mean, there's terrible things like that happening every day, right?
Sure. I think of too just when you say the country warring with itself. I mean, it's divided. I mean, we just have probably even in this little, and we're close, we're friends, but even here we would probably disagree on some things, right? And it's okay. I think it's more of when that becomes you line up, right? Well, I'm Republican, I'm Democrat, I'm this, I'm that, right?
Yeah, and it's okay, like you said, it's okay to disagree, but people can't come together at all anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, we disagree on this. Well, you give a little bit, and I'll give a little bit, and then we come to a solution. They don't even do that, in our government anymore. It's either I get what I want or nothing.
Yeah, it's like you can't. There's no compromise.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta, and that's why it's important to, we talk about this a lot, but to be grounded in this, right, in the truth. That's got to be your. That's what you don't compromise on.
And then he talks about the media fanning the flames. Check. They just keep dividing us, both sides, all of it.
Yep.
And they hardly ever do anything positive anymore on the news, right? It's all you see is and hear is negative.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got rid of all the news apps on my phone, and I mean, you can't. I mean, it's just filled with negativity. That's all it is.
If you listen to enough of it, it really affects you too.
Yeah,
it
mentally,
does.
I think it does. It kind of drowns you down.
Of course, this is in the 60s again. He's talking about drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at schoolhouses. And we have that at a lot of schools.
Oh, yeah. I grew up with it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a problem. Well, we shouldn't have that in schools. A school should be a safe place for kids to learn. And I'm an educator, but go on that for 20 minutes.
Does Wasso
itself.
have that?
They have
Elementaries don't.
officers and dogs.
They have dogs, yeah.
Let's see. Prisons overflowing. I know Oklahoma is like one of the most. Then we have like the highest population of prisoners per capita or something in the country. It's pretty out of control.
Really, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. What else is he talking about here? Yeah, it just keeps going on. I mean, I could just read this whole thing again. The Easter egg and the symbol of Christmas, that kind of stood out to me because we have, even in the church, we'll do like an Easter egg hunt in the church,
It drives me crazy. Man. I'm pretty bad too because like we do lean into the secular culture at Christmas a bit.
Right.
We do try to keep the focus on God by practicing some things. But Easter, I'm like a non-starter on any of it. We don't do, and I'm not judging. I'm just saying I can't tie it. Like at all. But we don't do the Easter egg stuff, and we don't do. I mean, they get candy and junk, but we don't do.
Where did that even come
Easter
from?
Bunny.
What's the history on that? Does anybody know?
Just commercial, man.
Yep.
I don't honestly know. Other than I think there was always some sort of holiday to. So I think a religious holiday for Good Friday was part of culture, which my company actually lets us off, which is, I don't even know if the school's off this year. It's crazy, man.
We have school this year. Last year we had it off, Good Friday.
Yeah, my
This year we
company,
don't.
I haven't worked at a company that's had Good Friday off. I don't know if ever, but we do. But I think that happened, and so then there's there's an opportunity here.
make some money.
to
Yeah.
make some money. Let's do chocolate bunnies and eggs. But man, legit though, that one is real hard for me, and I do not like it when there's a church in this community that does like a helicopter drop with eggs.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe couple, and it drives me bananas, man. Hey, nice Easter service. Everybody outside, there's a helicopter with Easter eggs.
I mean, you have the two most Christian holidays, Jesus' birth and resurrection, and we've turned it into, the devil's won that, honestly. You have the Santa Claus, the bottle, and he's talking about drinking and Christmas parties, I'm assuming.
Okay.
Well, how many-
I didn't know. I was like, what's the bottle?
How many kids, when you say Easter, they just think of Easter eggs and bunnies, right?
Yeah, no, and in the Christian calendar, that's why.
And Christmas can be very depressing to a lot of people, right? And it should be hope, right? And that's what I think he's talking about, the bottle. They just go to a dark place at Christmas.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
No, it's like the highest, there's so much pressure, man. I think it's like the highest heart attack season, right? Because of the pressure and all I think that's true, man. People always be dying at Christmas.
Dying at Christmas, that's not good.
It's a country song, I'm pretty sure.
Sounds like a country song.
Well, it's probably one of your favorite Christmas songs.
Please,
Kinda like
Daddy,
Grandma got
don't
ran
get
over by a
drunk
reindeer.
This Christmas.
In the last paragraph, if I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who want it until I have killed the incentive. Checkmate. We have more people in this country in the cart than pulling the wagon. You know what I mean? So it's
and coming in, right? I mean, if we don't want to get into that. We don't want to talk about that, but yeah.
Not today. But
Not today, sir.
there's just too much, right? So we all pay our taxes, and I'm fine paying my taxes if I know what it's going for. But then you get people getting these $10,000 tax returns, and they didn't even pay $10,000. You know what I'm saying? They didn't even make. It's just
I always pay a little bit. It sucks.
it's out of control, and it really. I mean, he's won that battle, right? Because they get incentives to do all the wrong things they get paid for, right?
You're right.
This is going to sound terrible, but if you have 8 kids with 8 different men, well, you're going to get a check for every one of them from the government. So there's incentives to keep living that lifestyle of sin. And that's
there's no incentive to not, at least, right? So like you're saying there's incentive to do the opposite, and I do agree with that, but there's definitely nothing maybe right now like there used to be where it's like, hey man, change and you can be successful and go do I got you.
He's talking about lack of patriotism in the country. Check. Marriage is old fashioned. Check.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing right now.
Yep. And marriage is between a man and a woman. So he just basically hammers out 60 years ago.
And I think you should talk about the pornography one. He talks about that. That's a huge thing, even in the church today, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, how many men are addicted to porn that are actually involved in the church? A lot, right?
Yeah.
That is a huge struggle, and it's because of the internet and your cell phone.
Yeah.
Right?
I think I was maybe for whatever reason blessed to grow up. I grew up in a bit of a bubble I didn't have cable, didn't have internet, you know what I mean? So it just never became, not because I'm awesome, it just never was a thing that I had access to. So I think at a point when it would have been formative in a bad way, I didn't have access. So I think it's just something I have not really had to struggle with. But yeah, dude, it's real, and it's not just for men. That's the thing.
No.
It's like I think people think it's a just a men thing, and I've with 3 daughters, you just got to be very aware. It's not. It's on everything. And we talked earlier in the paragraph too. Like that is something that attacks your kids, but also the gray area of gender, the gray area of sexuality. Like the world tells you there's gray there, and there's not, right? And that's because you got to be on this, and oh, man, I think this is like in the last like year or so, for the first time I started thinking about, we're raising our kids. They're going to leave our home, and hopefully they're going to go the kind of a path we want them to, right?
Yep.
A bit. Man, they're going to have a hard time, finding spouses and raising their kids if the culture just keeps diving like this, right? And that's what I think about.
Our grandparents worried about their kids, and then our kids,
of course,
all that.
Yeah, of course.
But I honestly think right now it's worse socially because we're just accepting of all this sin more so. Yeah. I mean, it's always been here, right? It's in the Bible back thousands of years ago. There was all this stuff, but I just feel like our society is accepting it, and I'm not okay with that. So that kind of leads into, what do we do as Christians to attack that and stand up for our faith? Because there's all kinds of stuff on Facebook. You watch these pastors will go out to these, abortion rallies and try to talk to these people, and they're filled with so much hate, anger, aggression. Like they're like closed off to even listening.
Yeah.
Right. And they don't have an argument. So the first thing they go to is they attack you. Right. So how are we going to teach ourselves and our kids to stand up for Jesus in this world when it's harder to do now than it was when we were young, right?
Yeah.
Because we get attacked for being followers of Jesus, even now in America, which I didn't think that ever was going to happen, right? And it's happening.
Yeah, and I mean, think about where we live, too. I mean, we're right in the middle of the Bible Belt, right? I mean, you can throw a stick, and I have a poor arm. I mean, you can throw a stick and hit a church in this town, right? And almost, Bethany and I talked about that, how when we moved here, how crazy it was that almost immediately when somebody met you, you were like, where do you go to church? And I'm, from Texas, which I would consider Bible Belt as well. We're from maybe a little bit liberal town there, but hardly anybody asked,
right?
And it wasn't something, but almost here everybody goes. Like but like I know several people that go, but that's it, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. There's a difference between going to church and living the Christian lifestyle.
Absolutely. But you're talking about an area, but we still are feeling some of this. Like we talked about what's going on at the school, and I'm not going to get into, but
yeah, I can't say anything about it.
The pressure in this area, can you imagine being in California or on the East Coast or even in some pockets of my home state? And you guys know what my home state is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Louisiana?
Oh my God.
Ooh, man.
Are you a raging Cajun?
Ooh, that hurt. No, so I think it's our kids, my daughter's got a dream to go live in Colorado, mainly because it's beautiful mountains, and we go there a lot.
Yeah.
But man, like that's nerve wracking.
Yeah, Colorado Springs is still pretty conservative.
Yeah.
Compared to
But,
Boulder.
well, they're right there though.
Yeah, they're close. They're all close.
It's just So what do we do, Lucas?
I don't have the answer.
Oh, you were
man.
asking? Like,
I was asking. Like, I don't know.
I thought you were leading into what we do.
No, I don't have. That's all I had. But.
I mean, for sure, we got to fill ourselves with God's word daily, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's no doubt that we've got to, because we got to be careful what we put in from the world and take that in, because that can even influence us, right? If you hear something over and over and over again. So I think we for sure have to make sure that we fulfill ourselves with God's word and reiterate that. And Jesus says it, right? We talked about this in youth, to be a disciple, right? You're called to be a disciple of Jesus. And there's no part-time, disciple. Jesus says there's one way, right? And he says, I'll mess it up some, but essentially, give your life over to me, Don't have control of your own life. Give it to me, and then pick up your cross daily, right? Which is the ridicule. Like, you're going to face these things. If you give your control of your life to me, follow me, people are going to ridicule you. They're going to go after you, attack you. Pick up your cross daily and follow me. And that's what we got to do. I mean, that's what it is.
Yep. And he says it's a wide road to hell and a narrow road to heaven, and that's scary too. Not scary to me, but like all these millions, billions of people think they're going to heaven, and he's and on Judgment Day is like, no, I don't know you, right? So there's a lot of people that are attending, Christian schools, Christian churches, and all this stuff, and they're not actually Christians, and that's scary to me.
Jesus says you're either a disciple, you're all in, or you're not, right? Just because you go to church, just because of this, like, I require faith of action and knowledge, right? Wisdom, all of it.
I think too, we miss the aspect that we're going to be judged.
Yeah, even as a believer.
Yep.
Your life will still be judged.
And that's, I think people, like, it's kind of like, well, I checked the box, I'm good, not kingdom focused, and we go. Don't get me wrong, I've been less kingdom focused before.
We're
right?
all human, right? We all
human.
sin. We're all gonna fall short of that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of habits. It's a daily grind, right? It's dying to yourself and moving forward and hopefully helping your kids figure that out as well.
Yeah. And I don't have like the history on revivals in our country in front of me or really that much research on it. But I feel like we're due for one.
I feel like we're due for one, but man, the sad thing is it might not be happening here now.
That's true too.
And that's some historical context too, where that wave of Christianity kind of like wraps itself around the world. And I think the Far East right now may be where you're seeing a lot of that, and that's the sad part.
Where it's illegal.
Well, I'm glad they're.
Bible.
Yeah,
we say it's sad, but I'm glad. I mean, we want Jesus spread across, and I know that's not what you said.
I mean, sad because we're free here.
But we're losing it.
We don't have to be scared about it, right? They might die. You know, we talk about some churches in California that flourished during the pandemic because they just said, "I'm not closing the doors," even though the state told them they had to. They said, "We're not doing it," and they flourished because they stood in the face of it. They said, "No, I'm not going to." And what do we see here? And this is go down the whole road to that. But like, what do we do here? We closed. We closed down. We went online, and it's just kind of a little bit of a bummer, right? A little bit of a bummer to be tired, but I get it. We're making decisions and it taking a lot of people into account, and it's really trusting God. And behind all this, like negative, hey, this is the world we're headed. I mean, God is in control and He knows, and that is the hope, like you mentioned. He is the hope, and we have that. But man, it's good stuff. Paul Harvey, what's his saying at the end? What does he always say?
Good day.
Is that what he says at the end?
Good day.
Didn't he have something like
that's the rest of the story?
That's the rest of the story.
Something like that, yeah.
I'd like to dig into that. He's a character, man, and I can just hear him on the radio right now, like my papa's truck. But
some verses. I'm not going to read a bunch of verses here because we're on time and stuff. But I just encourage people to go read the Ephesians 4, and that kind of just sums up what we need to do as followers of Christ.
Good.
And
you're right. It's like a guide there, right?
It is a guide.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ephesians 4 is like a guide. You're right. That's great. And there's a few of those. Man, there's some in the Old Testament too, right? In Deuteronomy where we have a guide to say, hey, here's what we need to do.
Yep.
And tie those together. That's awesome, man.
Yep.
I appreciate the thought of bringing this, Lucas. That was fun to listen to the crackly old radio. I really like that.
AM radio.
I love AM radio. I really do. It's like records, right?
Yep.
Vinyl, as the kids say.
Vinyl.
That's right. All right, boys. That was a good one.
Yep.
That was
I
fun.
liked it. Thanks, Lucas.
Yep.
See you next time.